really enjoyed this. There's such an atmospheric sort of look to it, and it's just a very interesting. I mean, the Victoriana thing is all the rage at the moment. Had you both read the book that the series was based on?
I hadn't prior to the email coming through for the audition, but I did. I absolutely ate it up once I started reading the book. I completely flew through it. It's a fantastic read with such pace to it. I think that it's sometimes hard to find in Victorian settings with books, and especially when they're modern books, but the characters were also well-rounded and well-developed, and I felt like the story had such danger to it and such pace that I absolutely fell in love with it straight away.
Yeah. And Freddy, what?
No, likewise. I hadn't read the book before, and then when I was offered the job, I read it up and read it read it up. I read it up. I read it very quickly.
Read it up, watch it all.
Read it up.
What?
I was going to say something really articulate.
Oh gosh. Right. What can you? Right. Oh,
it's popping
let's
off.
straight face. Hang on, straight face. What can you both tell me about each character? Let's start with you.
I play a character called Bluebell, who predominantly works out of the Dolphin Bar. She's a very strong relationship with the madam that runs the bar. And Bluebell, it's quite an interesting character because she sort of slinks in and out of a lot of the men's life in the story. And she's quite a strong-headed, quite worldly, I would say mature, and a real observer in the story. I think that she has a natural keen eye on danger, and when people aren't telling the truth about who they really are. She particularly picks a bone with Silas, and she's right, she's doing it for the right reasons, and I think it's very impressive how forward and how much she's poking at him, because for a woman of her stature at that time to do that, it shows that she cares a lot, and she is quite capable of standing up for herself. So she was a very, very fun character to play. It's not something that I've ever played before, and I enjoyed it.
Would you
smashed
say?
it.
Oh,
Would you say she's somewhat of a feminist icon?
I would say, yeah, I would 100% say that. I think that when we meet her, especially in the markets with Iris and her twin sister, she has this like walk and this strut and this way about the markets, and she is quite confident in her own skin and her own body, and it's nearly like, even though she, as a sex worker, you know, she has this like star quality about her and she owns that, but at the same time she's quite childlike when we see her interacting with the madam and we see her around the men, but she's quite good at moving her personality, sort of shape-shifting around to serve each person. But yeah, she's definitely a gears girl. So yeah, I'll take that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bluebell says thanks.
Freddie, what can you tell us about Gideon and the kind of man he is, really?
Yeah, Gideon's not a feminist icon. I think it's probably fair to say, unlike Bluebell. So he's a surgery student at University College London, and is very much a product of his time. He believes in the sort of set social order, and the class you're born into is the class you deserve to be born into, and that's where you stay. And so he meets Silas as he's sort of exploring, and he's sort of following his fascination with surgery and study of the human anatomy. And that's something that we share. And immediately there's a kind of magnetism that draws them together. And he sort of judges the book by its cover. Silas is a very talented person. He's a very kind of brilliant surgeon. So they sort of are thrown together, and then when Gideon realizes that all is not as it seems, he reveals his true colours.
Mm-hmm. How much did you each know about that era? That kind of like there was like a revolution in both science and art. How much were you aware of that kind of era around that time, and sort of what was happening around, for example, medicine and any other kind of art?
I think I thought I knew loads, because that sort of, like you said, that Victoriana is so in at the moment, and we're so sort of inundated with imagery from that era. But it was actually, I think, reading Elizabeth's book, which is so heavily researched and so sort of meticulous in its detail, that I went, that can't be, is that true? Is that sort of, was it in 1850 that Joseph Lister was working and, coming up with anaesthetic and all of this sort of kind of thing. So it was working on this that sort of opened my eyes to it.
How about you?
I would say exactly the same. I think I was quite ignorant going in. I definitely was under the impression that they were a lot less resourceful than what they were during this period. And I think that was all sort of brought to my attention through, especially working with the hair and the makeup department on this job, getting ready in the morning when they were able to talk you through step by step how a girl would have even got ready at that time, and heating up metal bars to curl her hairs and things like that. I didn't expect, though, that sort of innovation even there in the beauty world. I know that's not like science what you're talking about, but that even amazed me to that point. So yeah, it was especially interesting to look through it at that lens, and it was such a phenomenon. Everything was sort of going on.
I think the look of it is absolutely gorgeous. We're completely taken in by the aesthetic of the era. I mean, how much did you love those clothes?
Oh my God, I love the clothes. I thought all the men's costumes as well were so beautiful and so detailed. And my costume particularly, I absolutely loved. I loved the sort of flamboyantness and the feather in her hair. It nearly felt like a flag, like I'm here if you're looking for me. So I was a huge fan of the costumes. Were incredible. I mean, a nightmare after lunch, but beautiful to look at nonetheless. I know.
Yeah. What about you?
I feel like they do a lot of the work for you, and also, not just the costumes, but the whole production design, kind of and the cinematography. It's so lavish, and it kind of draws you into the screen. It does feel like reading one of those novels from that time. It's kind of so rich, and you could pause any frame and find sort of 3 or 4 things to get totally lost in. It's kind of very painterly, very like you used the word atmospheric. I think it kind of has a real feeling to it, an atmosphere.
I suppose it's really hard to know what it's going to look like when you're inside it and you're filming it. And I just thought it was absolutely... The pace of it is also absolutely perfect.
Right.
Sometimes it's a bit too dense. So were you ever wary about the way it was going to look and how...
I was actually blown away when I was on set. I think that this job particularly... It's one of those ones where you walk in and you're just audibly like, oh my God. As soon as I walked into the set, the first set I seen was Louis' studio, and just the renaissance of all those paintings on the wall, the texturedness, all the materials. It just felt so full and messy. And I mean, I've said this already before, and then the alchemy of Silas's shop as well. It really felt like you could in the darkness of how they shot it with light, it felt like any character could sort of sink back into the background and pop back out again at any moment. It was just so beautifully done. I think the art department has just done such an incredible job.
And the cinematographers as well. I remember walking onto set the first day and being like, it is so dark. It was in the pub. We were filming in the Dolphin. I was like, it's so dark in here. There's literally one candle lighting both Aina and me. And I was like,
Poor makeup artists.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, okay. And then I caught a glimpse of the monitor and saw the frame, and it does look like a Rembrandt. There's one single light source that fills the whole room, and they've just it's really, really clever.
And you could feel that scene that I have with George when Bluebell's getting painted by Louis. I did genuinely feel like I was walking out of a painting. I'd seen the monitor beforehand and the lighting and lying on the chaise longue. It just felt so magical then to sort of move out of the scene. It's just beautiful.
Finally, just one last question. I've asked this question to the other two. I'm going to ask, what was about one thing about each other's characters that you loved? So, for example, what was about Gideon's character that you loved or didn't like, and vice versa?
I loved your curiosity when I'm speaking about Silas in the pub, and I loved your wee pocket watch.
Thanks. Well done for going for the positives.
Yeah.
It's not an easy guy to find the positives with.
You can say negative as well.
And I love
positive is always better.
Working with Freddy.
Okay, good.
I love working with Saoirse. And I would say, I was going to say she sort of gives as good as she gets, but the truth is she sort of gives better than she gets. She goes through a hell of a lot, and she's sort of her strength. I'm going to just say
Brilliant.
that.
Thank you so much. Congratulations on such a fantastic series. Really loved it.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey you guys!
Hey, you guys!